27, uh, May 7th. And today I want to talk about something that has been on my mind constantly for like the last few weeks. I've written about it off and on. When I say written, I've taken notes about it off and on or journaled about it, and I'm bringing it to you. And it is very simple. Healing is your birthright. And what made me think about that is because I was telling you all about the books I had read last year that I really liked. One of them being All the Black Girls Are Activists by Ebony Janice. And I have like a handy dandy notebook here that I use when I take notes when I'm writing. And I, in my mind all day, I had kept thinking about like healing is your birthright and wondering what does that look like and what does that mean. And there's a line in her book where she asked like, what would the work have been if our leaders had centered self care? And she was talking about people who were like activists and people who were in the fight for liberation and stuff like that. And like essentially, what would the work have looked like if they were healthier, if they were emotionally mature, more emotionally mature, if they were healed? How sustainable would the work have been that they had done and that they were doing? And I thought about that today because everything going on in the world is like some of us are so burnt out that we can't fight, but some of us we've done nothing but fight and advocated and marched and called and you've had your foot on people's necks, right? But it gets to a point where that isn't sustainable and you have to take a break, right? And she talked about how different activists took breaks in different ways, right? But like I was thinking about how a lot of us don't have a oppression problem or a mindset problem or like a live on social media problem or corn brain problem. A lot of us have a dysregulated nervous system, right? And I don't think any of us have ever sat down and think that we weren't ever supposed to carry this much. We weren't supposed to know this much. We weren't supposed to do this much. And there are a lot of us who are beating ourselves up thinking that, oh, I'm lazy, I have analysis paralysis, or I'm tired, or I'm weak. It's like we internalize it when it's really not on us. And that's why I say healing is your birthright because that is your responsibility. Your responsibility was never to um, have to be an ally, have to be an advocate, have to be an activist. And there's nothing wrong with those things, right? But I think those things should come secondary to you taking care of yourself. And like, because we're not in our natural state, it's hard for us to have clarity, to have peace, to have love, and all these other things. And then that puts these systems as a function of distraction. And what is distracting you from is your healing. So, like, I'm not saying that the systems obviously don't have an impact on us because they absolutely do. But what I am saying is that a lot of what is happening is what's keeping you distracted from the freedom that you say you want. Because a lot of us say that we want freedom, we want liberation, and sometimes that is freedom of time, that's freedom of decision making, that's the ability to go wherever, do whatever, have enough money, and live. And I swear I get it. Okay, you talking to somebody who was born and raised in the projects. I wouldn't be where I am right now, right? Statistically, but if we were truly healed, if we were prioritizing healing, a lot of us would make different decisions. We wouldn't behave certain ways. We wouldn't react certain ways, and we for sure wouldn't carry stress and trauma on us the way that we do. So we're in survival mode, even if you're not hustling, because I think it's one of the ways we tend to call it out. But even if you're not hustling, we're in survival mode, and it's like we were never taught to thrive. We were taught to survive, right? And we were never given tools or taught how to heal. And in fact, when people introduce different mechanisms of healing, we often demonize it in one way or another, either by literally calling it demonic or by shunning it, shaming it, or saying that it's for another group of people, it's not for us. And like the longer you stay in that state, the more it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you your body, whether it is aches and pains, illness and disease, or weight, or hair loss, or fragility, It's going to cost you. It's going to cost you your peace of mind and your sanity. Not being able to trust people, not being able to build close and intimate relationships. It's going to cost you your ability to think critically and to think creatively and to even what's the word, chart your own path forward in life versus being influenced, right? Because a lot of people think they have a lot of original ideas when maybe you're just not exposed, or you are in such a what's the word, echo chamber, that you don't realize that this is something out there that you really should be creating the next version of this thing, the 2.0 or something better. But like, it costs you so much to be disconnected from yourself that we don't even realize. It's like, imagine the type of people we would be if we were the fullest version of ourselves, if we healed ourselves. Like, would you have the same personality? Would you have the same priorities? Would you have the same values? I don't think so, right? And that's why it makes me think about like how a dysregulated nervous system is just chronic stress. After a while, it becomes chronic stress, right? Because your body is stuck in this cycle of having these psychological and physiological responses to things. Remember, actual threats and perceived threats, it doesn't know the difference. So it's like that doesn't affect just how you navigate the world or how you see the world and navigate. I mean, it impacts your sleep, your digestion, um, and your ability to think. And you know, as I'm talking about the thinking part, it makes me think about how like we're always talking about the literacy crisis in the world, right? Even that is a distraction. The fact that you're missing the main idea, that you can't empathize, that is a tool of that's the tool or agent of chaos. That is a distraction. Because when you can't communicate, when people can't receive the message or understand the message or communicate the message, it makes the end goal harder, right? Which is connection. So like, I think for many of us, survival mode is our default, and it's time for us to kind of get out of that, right? Reactivate something, reset something, do something different. Because if we don't, it's just that's how things become generational trauma. Because your body is just responding to what's familiar. Your body is just, or your mind and your body are responding to what's familiar. And if you don't get in the driver's seat of your mind, your subconscious and conscious mind, to do things differently, how different will you be from the previous generations, even though we're in a totally different society? So, like, what's the word? What can feel normal can feel safe, but what's unnormal or abnormal, I guess, is what feels unsafe. And I want us to be able to walk through those unsafe territories for a minute, okay? Because a lot of us get harassed by emotions. People won't say that. That's what it is. Some of us are afraid of what would happen if we actually felt, if we actually engaged, if we actually questioned things. And that's how you know that it's time for a shift. So when you start shifting your mind, you change the way you react, you change the way you um, receive, you change the way you carry things or whether or not you carry things, and you start seeing things totally different. Like, I would never forget, now that I think about it, I made this post back in 2014. I didn't put it on Instagram. It was not on YouTube, rather. It was on Snapchat. I was still in college, and I was talking about how if you change your mind, you can change your life. You could literally change outcomes by changing your mind. If you just choose to look at things differently and see things differently, but you have to have full control of your mind to do that, right? So it's like your brain is always responding to signals, whether you know it or not. Even if you think you're not, you are. Your body, especially, is always responding to signals as well. That's why your body knows when to sweat. Your body knows when to try to keep you cool. Your body knows when to digest food. It's just I want to say the word is autonomic, maybe is the word for the nervous system, where these things just work and happen and do without your interference. So like um it doesn't, to make the shift, it doesn't start with like some big bang theory, some wild moment, some really put your foot down type of thing. No, it really starts with interrogating you, not trying to control everybody else around you, not trying to regulate, not trying to put everybody on a program. It really does start with you and interrogating, what am I feeling right now and why? If you would just sit and think and reflect for a moment, that will change a lot of stuff for you. If you can ask yourself, why am I doing this? What's the young lady, Lisa Ray, was talking about in an interview? She was saying how a lot of people think just because she's really pretty that she hasn't had a hard life or she ain't really about nothing. When in reality, she's done a lot of crazy things. Like she low key kind of was like a crash out, but like she was saying that after her dad was murdered, she was like just kind of being really reckless, and she had got to the point where she had to ask herself, why am I doing this? And some of us don't have that moment to click and stop and pause and think, why am I doing this? Why am I behaving this way? Why am I thinking this way? So that pause will go a long way. Another thing you could ask yourself is, what do I actually need right now? Because some people, they'll do things because they need or want a certain action, but they're doing everything opposite of that. Like how people threaten you to leave, like to push you away, or they threaten that they're going to leave you because what they really want for you to do is to beg them to stay, is to forgive them, is to give them grace, is to say that no, I don't want you to go. We try to manipulate, we try to emotionally manipulate to get our needs met. So it's like if you just ask yourself, what am I doing and why? What am I feeling? And what do I need? I think those are great starting points to resetting this whole thing. Like making that a daily, making those three questions daily things that you ask yourself throughout your interactions with people. I'm not saying it's going to be easy because, like I said, a lot of us are getting bullied by our emotions. A lot of us are rattled with the fear of being vulnerable. A lot of us are rattled with the fear of shame. We are always talking about the what if it doesn't work out right. A lot of us have fear of rejection. That's your emotions bullying you. I'm not saying that the reasons why you are feeling that way are invalid. They're absolutely valid. But to oppose that, I would like to say, what's gonna happen to you if you do it anyway? What's the worst thing that can happen to you? Somebody's gonna judge you. Okay, you've been judged before. Somebody's gonna shame you. Okay, you've been shamed before. You've been rejected before. And while it doesn't feel good, you survived it. You feel me? So I think that the healing comes from the regulation. And it's not just about changing your thoughts. It's about teaching your body and your mind what's safe to do again. And a lot of us were never afforded that privilege, especially generationally. We were never afforded that privilege. Some of us don't even feel safe in our own homes. I know I didn't at a point in my life, right? Because we underestimate the power of emotional safety or emotional harm. So that's why I'm saying to start that mindset shift, you got to ask yourself those questions. But also, you don't elevate your life by keeping busy or doing more. You don't elevate your life by pushing stuff down and drinking it away, smoking it away, sexing it away. What's cranes in the sky? Okay? You don't elevate your life that way. You elevate your life by really truly tapping in and being aware and feeling and experiencing and allowing those emotions to be in the body, feel where they show up in the body, and releasing them. Okay? And we do ourselves a huge disservice when we do that. So it's kind of like survival mode for many people can look like always rushing, of course, always hustling, like I mentioned, constantly being defensive or like guarding your heart, or sometimes being confrontational. It's also being hyper vigilant, always looking over your shoulder, always thinking that everybody's against you, like how Pisces we doing. And also, a very common way that we overlook is centering money in our lives. And it's hard to not do that. I'm not blaming anybody for any of these things, but it's hard not to do that when we know that money is what's going to give us what we truly desire. But I think that's the fallacy right there, thinking that money is the thing that's going to free us from it. And that's how, like, when people say that money can't buy happiness, it's always people who never had a lot of money who say that, oh, I like to see for myself. Or it's easy to say when you have it, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, that's a money mindset. That's a money block. When you think that money will buy you happiness and you can't see the humanity in the people who are telling you these things. Now, granted, some people are tone deaf and they're not reading the room, but it's like When you touch a lot of money and you still have a dysregulated nervous system, when you still have mental health, when you still are grieving, when you still are experiencing the emotions of life, you'll get it. But you'll never get it if you are willing to trade money for happiness, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, um, yeah, in the society, the capitalist society that we live in, it's hard to not prioritize, focus on, and desire having more money. But I just really encourage you to kind of think about it differently and see, is there another way to go about the freedom and the joy and the peace and things that I think money can buy? Is it easy? Is there another way or an easier way to get it than to get money? And I think the answer is yes. It's through healing your nervous system, right? Something else I thought about as well. This book I read on the polybagel theory. I believe the author's last name is Porges. But um, your body doesn't often know the difference between certain stressors or real threats and perceived threats, right? So if your nervous system thinks you're in danger, then your body, your mindset, your behaviors are going to act like they're in danger. And I think a lot of times what we see it as ego sometimes, when in reality it's someone being triggered, and many people don't even realize it. Like how you see how when people start projecting about things, I think that's a nervous system response too, where you are just completely unaware of how you are telling on yourself, telling about what's happening on your inner psyche, and how sometimes the stuff, like how they say, hit dogs will holler. Like sometimes people are forcing a shoe that didn't even fit, right? So it's like when you live like that in day to day, it's hard for you to prioritize healing because these things are a distraction. It's like the concept of the rat race. I don't know where they got it from or where it came from, but nobody ever stopped to ask what are the rats racing for in the first place? Where are they going? And oftentimes, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that they're going nowhere because they're on a wheel. But um, they're not just on a wheel; they're in constant motion, physical motion, but not physically moving anywhere. So it's like there's no real destination to it. Or sometimes, if you think about like rats in a maze too, they're going to get a piece of cheese, and it's like, and they have to do it all over again. Like it's basically like we're test subjects, like we're mice too. You feel me? So like it really does cost you your peace, your sanity, and your happiness, and your body sometimes to remain in that state of being. Like now, the research is showing how a lot of women have autoimmune disease because of suppressing emotions. I've always knew that that was the case, even when we talk about how a lot of women have heart disease. Even heart disease, I feel like heart disease is a lack of boundaries. I wonder what it is actually, because in the book "You Can Heal Yourself" by Louise Hay, they got all these different things for what why you may have certain ailments, like all the emotional reasons why you may have certain ailments. But on my own, I've always assumed that an unhealthy heart was a lack of emotional boundaries. Um, so it says for the heart, represent the center of love and security. A heart attack is squeezing all the joy out of the heart in favor of money or position, um, feeling alone or scared, thinking that you're not good enough or you don't do enough or you never make it. Heart problems is long-standing emotional problems, lack of joy, hardening of the heart, belief in strain and stress. Heartburn is fear, 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 and clutching fear. Okay, so not exactly boundaries, but I still think it's emotional boundaries. Okay, that's just me. But having said that, yeah, you elevate your life by becoming more aware of what's going on inside your body. Before I started doing EDMR therapy and even IFS therapy, I was so disconnected from my body. And while my circumstance was a bit unique because I was depressed as a result of grief, I think that it isn't unique in that I'm not the first person to go through it. I'm not the only person that's going through it. A lot of us are physically and emotionally disconnected. Like those receptors aren't connecting and firing off to let us know that something's wrong, something's not right. We just keep it in our body. Like after I started doing EDMR therapy, I would shake. I still do. I shake like how animals do after the perceived threat is gone. After the argument, after the conflict, I started taking back my time when I would get in conflict with people. Like, whereas that's not, I wouldn't say it's not the norm, but I guess people aren't necessarily used to it. Like, I can get into a very heated argument with someone because one homecoming, y'all almost whooped somebody's ass. Okay? I'm not going to lie to you. Because I don't mind slapping folks. But one minute, we were fussing. And then the next minute, I went and sat down somewhere. I reset my mind. I reclaimed my time, and I went back up to do other things. Because I'm like, I even started thinking about like, I don't want to let this ruin my whole day, my whole vibe, or the rest of my night or whatever. Like, I can't give this more time than what's actually happening in the moment because then we take it with us as we go. Like, yeah, I can remember what it was like. I'm bringing it up now, but my body isn't responding the same as it did before. I'm not getting angry like I was in the moment, right? That's the regulation. That is that is me asking myself, what am I doing and why? And I can tell you at the time, I was already upset because of grief, right? And this person was agitating. So there's that. They were intentionally doing things, being aggressive, blah, blah, blah. So yes, I did respond, but my usual self, if I wasn't grieving, would not have responded. Let fools be fools. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, you would be different, you would think different, you would respond different if you weren't in a dysregulated state. So, like, those feelings of overwhelm, the feeling of being stuck, constantly comparing yourself, constantly being up in emotion. Some people don't even let themselves relax. That that is your sign to try to regulate. Asking yourself, what am I feeling? What do I need? And why am I doing this? Reclaim your life. Reclaim your life. Like, I'm gonna talk about dating one of these days about how people who are pursuing men for money, people who are trying to be chosen, that is a survival thing. I'm going to talk about it one day because there are many of women who've lost their 20s to try to be chosen. There are many of women who are desperate for love. There are many of women who feel like I won't have safety if I don't have a man who provides, rather than betting on themselves and providing for themselves. I'm going to talk about that one day, but it's like, if you weren't in survival mode, would you be making those decisions? Would you be doing those things? And I think on one hand, like dating for money is like a physical survival, whereas trying to be chosen is that emotional survival. That is that sense of belongingness, that sense of someone accepts me, someone chooses me, etc. Like, that's an emotional survival behavior. So, like, healing is your birthright. Healing is your birthright. Like, you've been in survival mode for so long. Now it is time for you to heal. There are people who are about to start going to therapy who haven't been before. There are people who are about to start reading self help books that have not read them before. There are people who are realizing that I cannot repeat the cycle of the family that I come from because I see where they are and they've had lifetimes and generations to get it together. That I come from a family where multiple generations where everybody's poor. Everybody is a crash out. Everybody has had a phase of going to jail. Everybody's had a phase of coming from a broken home or being reckless. Or it's like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't have to repeat that. And it's going to feel like betrayal to some of those people. Some of you all are coming from an environment where you get called a square or a lame or a simp or corny for being in your books. There's somebody out there listening to this where you are just not, you're not like the people around you. You're not like the other people around you, and and you're afraid because it's unfamiliar. We gotta go into the unfamiliar. We really have to, because once you get tapped into you, you start realizing how many people are living life on autopilot. And you will start to understand how and why they struggle with accountability because they don't even own how they show up in their own lives. They don't own the decisions they make. They don't own the impact they make. They don't own the role they play in the outcomes and the experiences that they're having because they're so dysregulated, because they're so disconnected, because they are so out of touch, not with reality, but with the awareness that I control this. You know, so healing is your birthright. It is your birthright. It is your birthright. That's the one thing people cannot take away from you is the healing. That's the one thing people cannot take away from you is the healing. Like they can take your physical freedom, they can take your safety in the home, they can do all these things. They cannot take away your healing. They cannot take away your mind and what you learn. So if you keep living your life in survival mode, you know what it's going to look like. You see it around you. You see it in them aunts and uncles. You see it in them grandparents, your parents, and or elderly people. You see it in people who never left your hometown. You see it in people who never had a chance to live because they, for some reason, ended up incarcerated. A lot of people are in jail because they were emotionally dysregulated, because they were hotheads, because they couldn't control their emotions, they couldn't control their temper, they couldn't manage their feelings. You are deciding to do something different. And you will never have the access to the full life you're meant to live if you are constantly choosing what's familiar when what is familiar is dysregulated. So that's it for today. I hope that they reach somebody and that you're beginning to think differently or at least interrogate your actions, thoughts, and behaviors and feelings to start that process.